Hey everybody, I'm Gary Palmer Jr., you're you, and together we are minting coins. So this is part 2 of today's videos going into the news, talking about what's happening, not just in terms of the Bitcoin price increasing and the altcoin prices decreasing, or the different forks that we have, or the Bittrex anomalies that we talked about in the last video, that including Bitcoin Gold and SegWit 2x, but other things that are happening in terms of the legal definitions of blockchain and what does blockchain delivery mean, and what's going on with the Trump administration planning to establish different blockchain-based national identity systems, or maybe just one major blockchain-based national identity system. So with that being said, why don't we go straight into the news and let's discuss. So in this first article over here coming out of Coindesk.com, we have the CFTC considering cryptocurrency delivery and the definition of cryptocurrency delivery. And so the CFTC is the U.S. Commodities Futures Trading Commission, and they're working on a way to define exactly what a cryptocurrency is when it's deemed to be delivered, and they're having a hard time defining what does it mean to be delivered due to the complexities of the cryptographic key management, but not just the complexities of the cryptographic key management, but the complexities of that management with their existing systems and the existing definitions and the existing infrastructure. It's probably not going to fit at a perfect 1-for-1 ratio. And that's openly stated an issue that they're having. Because they even go on to say in an event, would someone here like to tell me how to define the actual delivery of a virtual commodity? Because the CFTC is working very hard to provide a suitable response to that question. They're definitely having a difficult time, as stated in this article. So something else that's very interesting in this article that they go on to state at this one event is that one of the most fascinating aspects of Bitcoin is not that it's a virtual currency, it's that it's an ecosystem. So what they're saying is that, first of all, they're admitting that Bitcoin is a virtual currency, but they're also admitting that Bitcoin is so much more than just a virtual currency, and that it's a whole market, it's a whole ecosystem, it's a whole layers and layers of different constituents who have interested, vested needs surrounding the value and utility of Bitcoin as it plays increasingly major role in their lives and the lives of everyone in their communities. And so this is affecting different people at different levels to different degrees. And as it seeps into Western society more and more and traditional banking institutions, these institutions, these regulators, these governments, they're seeking to figure out what does it mean to have delivery of the asset, of the virtual asset. Separate from that, moving on over at Cointelegraph.com, we have this one article talking about how governments are eyeing blockchain to manage the creation of a national identity system. So with a national identity system, it'd be very difficult to hack, it'd be very difficult to fake, it'd be very difficult to, you wouldn't have people repeating social security numbers or purchasing, fake identities. These would be established using the blockchain technology, and then very, very difficult to make to make fraudulent, because the way this distributed ledger technology works and the way this blockchain technology works, maybe some people would be able to manipulate the system, but by and large it'd be much more difficult by a degree of a significant degree of magnitude, greater difficulty for someone to change what was in these archives. These would be essentially the Jedi library archives. Practically no one would be able to change this information. And so here we have various government agencies around the world planning to use blockchain or distributed ledger technology in their bid to establish a national identity system for their respective jurisdictions. And so we see different places like this, like places like Singapore, places like Estonia, places like the state of Illinois, where they're looking to do a pilot trial of a blockchain-based birth registry ID system with a goal to individualize and secure identities. Current stated goal, right? And so this is really interesting. They're partnering with this Utah-based company, Evernin, maybe that's how you pronounce it. And they're expected to use the Sovereign Foundation's publicly accessible distributed identity ledger in their project. So this article goes on to say that talking about the benefits of distributed ledger-based identity systems is that there's a shift of power and profit from data management to individual owners, and from major companies and the right of the owner to sell his or her information. At least that's how they're pitching it on this one end. On the other end, it does give them an incredible amount of power and an incredible amount of control. And just to be really clear, part of the reason that this is coming out, and part of the reason that more and more countries and more people in the United States are talking about this, has to do with the recent data breach from Equifax, which resulted in a theft of the personal data of over 140 million different individuals. So then we go on to the Bitcoinist to just ask ourselves, is it possible that could we replace the existing systems with blockchain technology, since the security experts are suggesting that this blockchain technology could replace social security numbers, and the blockchain technology could be used as the identity credentials in the world. So it's not just Illinois that's talking about this, but really specifically, I just want to let you know that in the wake of the data breach, the Trump administration has decided to task several federal departments and several federal agencies with the responsibility of coming up with a new identification system in order to prevent such hacks from happening again. And so we've heard before that there's people inside the Trump administration who are pro-Bitcoin, who are pro-blockchain technology. I'd say overall everybody in every financial institution and company in the world is pro-blockchain technology. They're just not pro-Bitcoin, right? Major differences, as we're going to see later on in the videos to come, the differences between being pro-Bitcoin and being pro-blockchain. But this is a case where we're going to have blockchain introduced at a federal level, a national level, within the United States, in a way that is, managing the identification of every man, woman, and child, every product, every ingredient, everything can be tracked using this type of blockchain technology. It's definitely interesting. So analysts suggest that more and more governments are going to be implementing blockchain technology into sensitive infrastructures in order to protect important data from individual or government-sponsored hackers. So it's sort of the beginning, right? It's like we're starting to see it. We're starting to see more and more regulation of Bitcoin and blockchain technology, and we're starting to see more and more of the government trying to ban Bitcoin or to implement Bitcoin or to, use Bitcoin's blockchain technology for supply chain tracking, for people tracking, for tracking management, for land tracking, for all different types of tracking, but not using Bitcoin to replace the world currency. They like the idea of Bitcoin and digital currency in a digitally controlled ledger that they control, but they don't control Bitcoin. And so the government wants to ban Bitcoin. And so what we're seeing here in this image is government banning Bitcoin. It's like, how are we possibly going to get through this? How can we get on the sidewalk? How can we get on the other side of these restrictions? And on one hand, it's just hilarious, right? Because Bitcoin can't be stopped, Bitcoin can't be blocked. It can be regulated to holy high water or where have you, but it's just difficult. It's open source, it's everywhere, it's nowhere. But I'm here to let you know that we are facing huge risk and we are on the brink of major disruption to the disruptor. I think a lot of people are expecting another financial correction or catastrophe or somewhere along that spectrum. Something's going to happen. We don't know when, and we know it's going to be everywhere, and we know it's going to be sometime in between now and later. But we don't have those details. But we do know that there's things happening that are signs. There's data, and in the Bitcoin space, in the blockchain space, and cryptocurrency space, there's a lot of setup happening with the way people are looking at Bitcoin and the way that they're going to be moving forward here. So where does this story start at this point? So over here at Cointelegraph.com, we have this article that just came out on October 8th talking about how the IMF could issue an international cryptocurrency to place the US dollar. Very, very interesting. I'm not sure who would be backing that, who would be behind that. The world banks all joining in into one giant super global digital reserve currency. Very, very interesting. And then the United States would just then be its own country to issue its own cryptocurrency. Let's take a look at this article. So the world may soon have an international cryptocurrency in response to Bitcoin. And these comments are coming from Christine Lagarde, who's the head of the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF. And so after the recent announcement coming out of Dubai government regarding its intention to issue a state cryptocurrency, we're also hearing from the IMF that it's possible for a global currency, for a world currency, and questioning who would issue this currency and how this currency would get created for the world. Such a system coming out of the IMF would run contrary to the underlying principles of Bitcoin because it'd be centralized and because the IMF would be there to fix and regulate the values, and they'd be manipulating and managing the flow of money in and out of different countries using their own, essentially distributed centralized technology. And this is completely contrary to what we all know about Bitcoin and the freedom and the permissionless and the borderless aspect of what the Bitcoin technology is. And so this article goes on to state with this new reserve currency that some major global economies may want a new digital currency to function as the reserve, instead of the dollar, replacing the dollar, especially if a crash comes and something happens to the dollar, that would be, disadvantageous for the dollar's strength. And so if that happens, when that happens, maybe before or after that happens, the IMF coin could potentially replace the dollar in that context. And should it become, widely accepted that people would want that IMF coin over the dollar, such a situation, could happen, if there is another major global event since the last one in 2008 when Bitcoin was born. So in such a case, the dollar and other national currencies would be restricted to local markets. And so just people in America inside the United States would use dollars, and just people inside China would use the yuans. But internationally, there'd be the IMF coin that could be used to, make payments and settle debts across, through international banks across borders in this sort of system of world-controlled currency. And supporters of Bitcoin are just simply arguing that there's no need for such a currency in such a form because Bitcoin already exists. But the International Monetary Fund is not interested in Bitcoin. These large financial institutions are not interested in Bitcoin. They want their own currency using the Bitcoin technology. So separate from the IMF, just real quick, Dubai is going to put 100% of their land registry on the blockchain. So it's not just the case of Dubai making their own cryptocurrency, but it's them implementing land tracking through the Dubai Land Management Department, the DLD. And so just like we saw earlier, the United States talking about creating a national identity system for birth records, social security numbers for people's identities using blockchain-based technology. Dubai and specifically DLD has created the blockchain system using smart contracts and a secure database that records all real estate contracts, including lease registrations. And it takes these real estate contracts and lease registrations and it links them with the Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, the DEWA, and the telecommunication systems and the various property-related bills. And so with the blockchain security, the electronic real estate platform incorporates the personal, the tenant, the person living there, into the database, and then cross-references that with the Emirates identity cards and the validity of the residency visas, connecting the person with the property and allowing the tenant to make the payments electronically, instantly, anywhere in the world, allowing them to do that and not use checks or print any papers. But if you ask me, they'll just make that, take that step for you and tell you that you have to use this system. And at some point, writing checks and printing papers won't even be accepted. So there we just have Dubai, moving forward with the money, potentially not necessarily moving forward with the money, but considering the money, moving forward to blockchain technology to monitor the land. And in America, we have using the technology, considering the technology for the national identities, and then we have the IMF considering it for a world currency. So there's a quote goes on to say from the DLD that the initiative is still in a stage of infancy, and that they see that it would be great for many partners joining the blockchain to improve their client services, including banking, mortgages, utilities, maintenance operators, and that their aim is to unite all real estate and department services into a single efficient platform. So we have this information coming out of IMF. We see what's happening coming out of America. We see what's happening come out of Dubai. And I'm looking at this recent issue of The Economist. We have the bull market and everything, talking about the bull, the increase, how assets are very high. And so we, let's see, what does this cover look like? We have The Economist, gun laws after Las Vegas, standoff in Catalonia, Goldman, vampire squid to damp squib, are women underpaid, the bull market and everything. What do we have here? We have a house, we have a picture frame, we have pie chart, we have Wi-Fi, we have artist stuff, we have snail moving, we have a house, flowers, charts, iPhones, cars, electricity, factories, more charts. What's this, like a dove or a sparrow? Why is that there? Picture frame, flower, bonds, looks like maybe a bee on a world. What else is in this? Like a USB connector, a microchip connector, just like a microchip transistor, butterfly, hand pointed outward and upward, and of course right here we have the Bitcoin. And so it's just really interesting to see the Bitcoin on the cover of The Economist and seeing the bull and everything. And just seeing what is this doing to the psyche of people who are seeing this and who are recognizing the signs all around us. All right, so let's tie this whole IMF thing together and get through the rest of this. So from here and what we were hearing Christine say with the IMF and the IMF creating their own global world cryptocurrency. Separately, over here, this article posted just today on CryptoCoinNews.com, we have Kenneth Rogoff, who says that the Bitcoin price bubble will collapse And this is an ex-IMF economist. He's also a Harvard professor, renowned economist, Kenneth Rogoff, who in the past has argued for a reduction in the amount of physical cash in the world. He recently said that the Bitcoin price will collapse due to the continued regulatory pressure of governments. And so what does he say here? He's quoted as saying, "My best guess is that in the long run, the technology will thrive, but that the price of Bitcoin will collapse." That's very, very interesting. That's what he's predicting. When we're looking at the news, it really seems like that's definitely what's being set up. And so let's talk a little bit about Kenneth a little bit and just get into some of the things that Kenneth has said in the past. And so Kenneth over here has said that central banks across the globe must start preparing themselves to introduce negative interest rates. And so if there's a negative interest rate in your bank account, that means that instead of getting paid 1% or 0.5% or a quarter of 1% or whatever ungodly low amount that it is, a negative interest rate means that you would have to pay the bank for you to have the privilege of your money being in the bank. And so Kenneth has said that we should introduce negative interest rates in the next global recession, and that we're going to be able to introduce negative interest rates, and we're not going to have to worry about a run of the bank and people shoving cash under their pillows, because cashless transactions are already very, very popular. And not only are the cashless transactions very, very popular, but we could also get rid of the Benjamin Franklin, the $100 bill, which is exactly what Kenneth Rogoff has argued that we should do, is to retire the $100 bill out of circulation and to completely remove it from circulation. And not only that, what else do we have here? Not only that, so what do we have? So removing the $100 bill from circulation, adding negative interest rates inside the society, and then also having so much regulation that that will have the price crash of Bitcoin just in time for the IMF to issue its own cryptocurrency for the world. So when the dollar is failing, when Bitcoin is failing, and the IMF comes out with an IMF coin, that's just what we're seeing, the picture being painted from the headlines that we're seeing from the news sources that, we're sifting through. So going back over to this one image that we saw on Reddit, this was a screenshot that someone had grabbed of the news and what they saw in their headlines, just a couple of hours from each other, two different articles, both from Forbes, top stories. Here's why Bitcoin won't replace gold so easily. And a completely separate article, why can't gold compete with Bitcoin? And you just see the schizophrenic sort of thinking of, it's not really schizophrenic thinking, it's just not everyone is on the same page, because on one hand, people are recognizing the value in cryptocurrency, but on the other hand, they're trying to control the message and control the markets and not let the Bitcoin price get away before they're ready to, crash it again, with the different vehicles that are happening, with the, different financial tools that are being added with Bitcoin. On one hand, that's great for the adoption of the cryptocurrency, but on the other hand, it really gives these centralized authorities a lot of power to manipulate the price, to mess with the price, and then to coordinate that market manipulation with the news, with the regulation, with the politicians, and rolling out new technology that will happen very, very quickly without any discussion whatsoever. We can already know ahead of time that we're not going to get that from them. So with that being said, I'd love to know what you think. On one hand, we have Christine Lagarde, the head of the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, who's encouraging banks and governments to not shortchange Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And on the other hand of the same body, we have this Harvard professor and ex-IMF economist, Kenneth Rogoff, who says that the Bitcoin price bubble will collapse with government regulation. and that the banks need to prepare for negative interest rates, and that we're prepared for a cashless society. And who has argued that the US $100 bill, the Benjamin Franklin, ought to be retired completely? So I'd love to know, what do you think about all that? Are you preparing by paying attention to the news and to the Bitcoin space? Are you considering holding on to a little bit of Bitcoin? Are you telling people in your circle of friends about Bitcoin and blockchain technology, hooking them up with maybe a Jax wallet for free and maybe just a little bit of Bitcoin? Let me know what you think. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Comment in the comment box below, either on this video or on Steemit. Visit us at Minting Coins. Sign up for an account over there. And I guess we'll chat more. In the meantime, I'm glad that together we are minting coins.